And a good Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. This is Springfield's Talk 1041. A couple days away from Friday, we will have a Heroes Breakfast. I know many of you know what that means. If you don't, then here's how it works. It's easy stuff. If you're a veteran and you join us out at Scramblers as we broadcast live, 6A to 9A, you get free breakfast. That is thanks to Scramblers, the Warrior's Journey, Delta Roofing and Air Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. And then in the afternoon, 4 to 6, we are going to have happy hour at Vineyard Market. It's our new-ish place. We had our debut happy hour there about a month ago, and we're looking forward to having our second one there. And it's come and go as you please. You can, of course, eat if you want, have dinner, or you can just enjoy a drink, a beer, a wine, a whiskey. These are folks that really know the drinks as well. So if you're somebody that maybe not really into wine, but you're interested in it, or whiskeys, they are very well versed. And they have a humidor as well with a side to the facility. It's very comfortable, televisions, couches, very loungy, if you will. That is a smoking area, and so you can enjoy a cigar over there if you'd like to. And that's, just whatever you want to do. So a lot of things to do and enjoy, including one another's company as we have that happy hour, 4 to 6 at Vineyard Market in Ozark coming up on Friday. And we've got location details on the site, do we? We've got that up there?
Correct.
Okay, so
KSGF.com
it's pretty easy to
and
find
on
it.
the Facebook page.
On the old Facebook. Indeedy do. There was a special election that took place yesterday. You probably heard a little bit about it, though it was in Tennessee. It was viewed as, it was a real long shot, but a hopeful long shot for Democrats who were hoping that it would be a mandate on Trump, which is the wrong way to view it. It is more of a mandate on the Republican Party, and these are two separate things that still there is an inability or an unwillingness to accept it. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. It got some additional attention because the Democrat candidate was a nut job, just an absolute nut.
Is that the one that was openly I absolutely hate Nashville. It's the
Yeah,
most horrible thing in the world. And it's
yeah,
that would have been the area she was representing.
yes.
Okay.
And I think she was saying that before she decided to run. But she's for defunding police. She said that she was very specific. She wasn't just like, I hate Nashville. She said she hated country music. She hated how we've got, I think, just one of the pedal bar, what do they call that? There's one that goes around Springfield
Yeah, I know
downtown.
what you're talking
Yeah, it's
about.
like, wait, first time I saw one, it was, I think I was in Houston. It was years ago. I've never done one before, but it's a neat concept, and it's like it's a bar, and it's a bicycle bar. You usually have 4 or 5 seats on either side, and you pedal you power it, and then there's sort of a quote driver, I suppose. And so you go around town when the weather's nice and, people are seeing you and waving and you're having a good time. I think it's a neat concept. I know Springfield has at least one of them. And anyway, I think she said she hated those because apparently they're all over Nashville. She just ticked off all of these things that if you were to say, hey, when you think of Nashville, what do you think of? And she specifically talked about how she just loathed those things. And she had a couple of weeks ago, video reemerged. I believe it was from a local television report of her forcing her way or attempting to force her way into someone's office. I think it was a lawmaker. It wasn't that so much that was attention grabbing. It was the fact that when she was physically removed, and not in a violent way. I mean, you had law enforcement. They just sort of picked her up and carried her out. She squalled like an 8-year-old. And it's one of the interesting traits I find about women on the left who really love to portray themselves as these powerful, strong individuals that are equal in all ways to a man. But the minute they come into some sort of contact with law enforcement in which law enforcement is required to physically restrain them, I mean, they act as if They were maced and tased and shot in the stomach and tortured. I mean, they scream and bawl and cry. And she had done that at one point as well. It's just so, I don't know. It, to me, it really was the opposite of what, if I were a woman, I would want people to see as a, quote, woman leader. Nonetheless, that was the big, great hope for the Democrats, because increasingly, the crazier the candidate is, the more unhinged the candidate is and emotionally unstable, the greater support that he or she gets from the Democrat Party. Was not enough, however. I believe it was a 9-point victory, or 7, 8, 9-point victory by the Republican. You're going to have, I'm sure it's already begun, this is going to be viewed by Republicans as proof that people are recognizing we're on the right track and that Republicans don't need to worry about the midterms. You're going to have Democrats note that Trump won that area by 20% or so, and so the fact that the Republican won it by less than half of that is a sign of eroding support in a district that was solidly red. Both sides are going to be able to have their talking points on this one to make it seem as if it's a victory. Now, I don't believe, I view this a bit differently. I don't really believe there's a whole heck of a lot to take away from this. A little bit, but not a whole heck of a lot in the context of the upcoming midterms. At the same time, however, there's some new polling regarding Senator Cornyn of Texas, who is an incumbent Republican running for re-election, that I believe is a much, much, much greater sign as to what it is that Republicans are looking at when it comes to the midterms and should be worried about. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Also, incredible press conference yesterday with Trump and Hegseth, Marco Rubio, who also had a sit-down interview later in the day with Sean Hannity. And he just, I would argue, better than anyone else in the administration right now, does a better job of clearly articulating whatever the message is he is trying to get across. He just does a really fantastic job at that. And he talked during the cabinet meeting that, of course, Trump opened fully to the press and allowed questions for, I think, a couple of hours. He spoke about Trump's approach and puts it out there again in a way that, to normal people, I believe, causes pause if there's any confusion about why Trump does what he does, and go, oh, well, when you put it that way, it makes total sense. And then he also, again, with Hannity, he did a kind of a layout, a groundwork, almost like a Venezuela 101 for people who are just really beginning to think, well, maybe I should pay a little bit of attention to exactly why this whole conflict with Venezuela is occurring, given that it seems as if it's leveled up just a bit. And, of course, you have Democrats and media, war criminal, Donald Trump. It's this, what's so funny about the accusations of Donald Trump being a war criminal is that some of these same people just a couple of weeks ago attended a funeral and said wonderful things about a man that not 20 whatever years ago they were also calling a war criminal. And that would be Dick Cheney. All of these things that the Mark Kellys and the Democrats, Mark Kelly, of course, being one of them, all of these things that they are claiming about Trump and Hegseth and war crimes, and this is all stuff that they used to say about Dick Cheney, and here they were all going to his funeral to pay their respects. All why, of course, because he endorsed Kamala Harris. So we see how anchored they really truly are in their moral beliefs on some of these particular issues. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m. Otherwise cloudy with a low around 19, wind chill values as low as 10. Thursday partly sunny with a high near 36. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
Someone had texted in from Twitchy the video and the story regarding that Democrat Tennessee candidate that lost yesterday in the storming of an office. It was the governor's office that she stormed and had to be removed by law enforcement. They should have just done the Nancy Pelosi Capitol Hill D.C. rule and did an Ashley Babbitt job on her and just shot her. Because what Ashley Babbitt did in the Capitol was much less threatening than what the Democrat candidate for Congress did in terms of the governor's office. But, different strokes, different folks. You're a Democrat, you storm a government office, trespassing, freedom of speech. You're a Trump supporter, execution, clearly. Springfield's Talk 1041 traffic update. Okay. Guns N' Roses. Tickets to see Guns N' Roses at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena Saturday, September 12th will go on sale this Friday, 10 a.m. Right now, however, you can register to win a pair by going to ksgf.com. And that registration, that ends on Friday. Is that what we decided, or you
Yes.
told me? Okay.
Yep, it ends Friday after the show because tickets go on sale at 10 a.m. and these are when before you can buy.
Oh, right. Very
So
good.
if you're thinking about buying them and you registered, please check your email. before you actually go and buy them. Because, hey, you might win them.
This is true.
You never know.
Someone will. Republican candidate, U.S. Army combat veteran, and pro-Trump candidate Matt Van Epps has won Tennessee's 7th District special election. He's vowed to work with the president to make America more affordable, reshore manufacturing jobs, and to unleash American energy. It was clear that the economy was the voters' number one priority in the election, and that is unlikely to change heading into 2026. And so it's still the economy, right? This is one of the reasons that the Democrats lost, along with a number of other reasons. And most of the other areas, Trump has arguably satisfied or has taken real action in order to do so. The border obviously was a massive issue for a significant number of voters, and perhaps even to his detriment, he solved that pretty darn quickly. The border itself, in terms of stopping, that was like in 2 weeks, he managed to get done what Democrats claimed was impossible to get done without congressional approval. Trump did it. Now we've got the deportation underway. There was the issue of crime, and Democrats have put their stake down on the side of the criminals and the ability of the criminals to run blue cities. And so while this is an area, it's an area where Trump has continued to be active, and the areas in which he has been allowed to utilize his authority, it has been extremely successful. Those areas of the country, of course, D.C., Memphis is another one that since, and these don't get quite as much attention as D.C. did because D.C.'s D.C., but nationally speaking, we don't hear so much about a number of these other cities like Memphis who have seen massive drops in crime, just like D.C., ever since National Guard came into play there. And so that is also an area in which Trump clearly has not been able to execute his authority to the degree that he would like to, but what people have seen is where he's not able to, it's because Democrats are taking the side of the criminals. And so that is what I would still consider most people recognizing as something that they side with Trump on. Now, so the economy is the big thing. And when in the context of the 2026 election, we have this real problem breaking away from this understanding that less than any other president in recent history, when it comes to voting, there is a detachment from Trump and his political party, the Republican Party. In other words, in the past, what you would often see is if there was, really great support for a president and the midterms may come along, and then that could translate, right? And there's still this lack of understanding that people they know Trump is a Republican. He ran as a Republican. He talks, about Democrats and the way Republicans talk about Democrats. But a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, they just don't see the Republican Party as being Donald Trump, and they don't see Donald Trump as being a Republican Party. So you can have somebody that is a very enthusiastic Donald Trump supporter that has no enthusiasm whatsoever for the Republican Party. None. Zero. Even if and when Trump gets out there and tells his supporters, you need to get out and support this individual, they're still not moved to a real significant degree. Now, if Trump's on the ballot and they show up to vote for Donald Trump and other Republicans are on the ballot, they're there, they have the ballot, they're going to vote for those Republicans. But when it comes to Trump not being on the ballot and motivating those individuals to get out, I just think there's still this lack of understanding that Republicans running around saying, well, you got to vote for me in order to make sure Trump's agenda gets done. I don't think a lot of Trump supporters believe that. There is still this view that the Republican Party is just a party that really is establishment and not at all exciting and not in sync with what Trump is doing. And here's what I think. I'm going to give you some polling down in Texas that says more about what Republicans are potentially dealing with in the midterms than what this special election in Tennessee. It's a survey of likely Republican voters in Texas, shows that incumbent Senator John Cornyn, whom I think is fair to say is seen as one of the more established Republicans. I mean, he's establishment guy. He is trailing both of the other Republican challengers ahead of the primary. It is very, very, very difficult to unseat an incumbent in a primary. It is almost unheard of. And the fact that an individual who is seen as a real leader within the Republican Party is losing to two Republican challengers, according to the polling, is a sign that Republican voters are not happy with the Republican Party establishment. Now, this is it's one state, but you are talking about the full state of Texas. But you're talking about a large part of the Republican base. Texas is very red. And John Cornyn is very established and Republican. And the fact that such a small number of Republican voters want what Republicans are doing now. They don't seem to be responding to what it is that Republicans say keep us in power, even though we're talking about Republicans, but Republican challengers here that are so it's essentially the status quo is something that this poll indicates even Republicans are unhappy with. So the Stratus Intelligence poll from November 21st, 22nd, was disclosed by journalist Ben Jacobs, who linked it to a super PAC backing Wesley Hunt. According to the poll of 857 likely Republican voters, Attorney General Ken Paxton leads the three-way race with 36% support, with U.S. Representative Wesley Hunt 26%, Cornyn 25%. 14% of respondents remain undecided. Cornyn's unfavorable rating has risen sharply. His current favorability is 35%, with 51% of respondents viewing him unfavorably. Among those, 28% said their opinion of Cornyn is very unfavorable. Despite spending over $40 million already in advertising and campaign efforts this year, the memo accompanying the poll notes that Cornyn's standing has not improved. It's not budging. Head-to-head matchups further highlight the current senator's vulnerability. Paxton leads Cornyn by 17 points, 51 to 34% in a head-to-head, while Congressman Hunt leads Cornyn by 23 points, 52 to 29%. Even when factoring in a hypothetical endorsement from President Donald Trump, Cornyn still loses to Paxton 44 to 41. A Trump endorsement for Hunt shifts the lead further, putting Hunt ahead of Paxton 51 to 31%. The results come amid continued criticism of Cornyn's Senate record and perceived departure from conservative priorities. Gun right activists have been unhappy with Cornyn in his role crafting the 2022 Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, along with a number of other reasons. I think that it's just, aside from that, and I want to repeat, I understand we're talking about one state. Just think about this question. What is it now? Or let's put it this way. If Republicans maintain control of the House and the Senate, what is it that they are going to do that they won't be able to do if Democrats get control? Like what legislation? What are they going to do when it comes to taxes? What are they going to do when it comes to anything that matters to you? With the economy being the number one issue, what is it that you see the Republican Party doing as long as they maintain control that they won't otherwise do. I would suspect that the vast majority of Republican voters don't have any idea. And if you have a voting base that has no clue what you will do if you stay in power, that is not a very strong motivator to get the voting base out. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Weather in a moment. Quick break. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight, a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m., otherwise cloudy with a low around 19, wind chill values as low as 10. Thursday, partly sunny with a high near 36, and taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
There's the special Tennessee election that took place. It was being billed as a potential signal of midterm elections. The Republican won by a significant margin, but about half of what Trump won it by. I don't see that as that terribly significant. What I do see as significant is polling that shows the Democrat senator from Texas, who is really seen as one of the most established members of the Senate, Cornyn, according to the polling, shows that he's losing to two Republican challengers. Now, this is one poll, and it's not. In fact, back to Tennessee, the most recent poll there showed that it was within the margin of error, and clearly it was nowhere near that. So polling can be off. But at the same time, I think the fact that Cornyn already this year has dropped $40 million in Texas, $40 million in a primary in which he is the incumbent, tells me that they have grave concerns. And if they find that that poll is legitimate and things don't begin to move sooner than later, I don't know that he would even bother staying in the election. I mean, why would you, only to be humiliated? It also makes sense to me because I've asked myself this question. What is it now Republicans are working on? What is the thing that will happen that benefits me as long as Republicans stay in charge? And I don't know the answer to that. And I'll give you some examples of what I think is part of the problem. Just the News has a story. Key Republican teases second GOP mega bill to tackle health care. And it reads, frankly, like every other single health care story since Obamacare passed about Republicans with some plan to fix it. Vague, preliminary, and as unfair as that may be, at some point you begin to doubt that anything meaningful is going to happen. And I'll just read to you this particular story. Chairman of the Republican Study Committee, Representative Austin Pfluger, on Tuesday previewed a second GOP mega bill focused on health care amid mounting concerns that Congress will not reach an agreement to extend expiring Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. Those subsidies are tax credits set to expire. Of course, we know this. Instead, some Republicans are eyeing a sequel bill to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that would include a number of reforms to health care. Flugel, the Texas Republican, told the John Solomon Report podcast, the Republican Study Committee is championing a second reconciliation package that would address the affordability of health care with multiple pieces of legislation. Now, I know everyone's different, but already this sounds to me like it's never going to happen. Some of it's my recognition that the problem with health care is government. And the fact that there are a significant number of Republicans in the Republican Party who believes that government is the answer. They just think that their government is the answer as opposed to Democrats' government answer is the answer. And so I already, in my mind, recognize that, well, their solution is just going to be more of the problem. Now, he did say what we want to see is competition first and foremost. We want to see transparency. There are plenty of middlemen in the system who are taking away from the savings that the patients that Americans should be getting. If the subsidies expire, premiums go up, so forth. Pfluger floated a number of other ideas to lower the cost of health care, including taking aim at premiums and the price of prescription drugs. So, I mean, the way that this is presented is his idea is, well, we're going to make things better. Well, okay. Who doesn't say that? Pfluger also pointed to health savings accounts as an alternative option that would help people pursue private coverage. These are all things, I'm just going to be straight up, that I do not think are going to make any bit of difference. But that being said, none of this is digestible to the average person. Now, another example. Fox Business. Trump says Americans may soon pay no income tax as White House explores alternative revenue streams. President Donald Trump suggested yesterday that Americans may not even have to pay income taxes in the near future, saying tariff-driven revenue could allow for the historic elimination of the federal income tax under his tenure. Whether you get rid of it or just keep it around for fun or have it really low, much lower than it is now, but you won't be paying income tax, Trump added. Has anyone heard any Republican talk about doing this? As much as we might like the idea, some people do, some people don't, this is something that would have to come out of the House. It would have to pass the House, have to pass the Senate. Does anyone believe that this Republican Party is going to eliminate income taxes? They're not even talking about income tax cuts. In fact, what their big income tax success has been is not allowing them to go up. The Trump tax cuts from the previous administration were set to expire, and Republicans managed to prevent that from happening, which was a good thing. But that essentially is saying, if you like things exactly how they are now, we're your guys, vote for us because that's what we've been doing. We made sure your taxes didn't go up. Well, that's just not exciting to me. I mean, that's great. That's a good start, maybe even. But, my point here is I cannot tell you what it is that Republicans are what I believe they will do that is meaningful to me should they maintain their power. And if you have a voting base that can't tell you what it is that you are going to do, that is problematic. Now, for the left, their message to their base is we're going to stick it to Trump, we'll stop Trump. And that is motivating for the base because they hate Donald Trump. Is that enough? May depend on the district. But what isn't enough, what I don't believe is enough, is for Republicans to say, well, if you don't keep us in power, then Democrats are going to be in charge and, well, they'll impeach Donald Trump. So what? They've done that before. Doesn't make any difference. That's irrelevant. Well, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. Well, if Trump's president, he doesn't sign it. So, what difference does that make? They can argue they will put a stop to all of the investigations we're doing. Well, the problem with that, frankly, is that voters don't believe anybody's ever held accountable for those investigations. And so they don't see that as meaningful. And I'm talking about perception here. I'm not saying that there hasn't been meaning to it and that it's not information that is valuable for us to know. I'm just talking about what it is that people, what motivates them, what makes them feel like, oh, yeah, this is why I want these people in charge. The reason that Trump has received overwhelming support is because he said specific things he was going to do. You could, why are you voting for Trump? He's going to close the border. He's going to do what he can to stop crime. He's going to utilize his power in order to try and get better deals for the United States in terms of the global economy. You could list the things. I just don't see that Republicans have that. And that's leadership. Mike Johnson. He's not somebody that has articulated here are three reasons, here are three things that we will do, or four things that we will, or even one thing that we will do as long as we stay in power, and this is why it matters to you. That's just not existing. I don't know, it just seems so obvious to me, and the fact that the Republican Party just, I don't know. It's like they want to convince themselves everything's going to be fine. And what I fear is that they're going to use the success of the 7th congressional race in Tennessee to say, oh, see, okay, all right, we're fine. We don't have to worry about this for the time being. Because I don't think that's the case. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 417-447-KSGF. Someone texted in. It's pronounced Cornyn, not Cornine, regarding the U.S. Senator from Texas. I wanted to update on, I mean, there's nothing massively insightful here, but the latest information revealed through court documents regarding the terrorist attack against our National Guard, two individuals specifically. And the Daily Caller is reporting that the Afghan charged with shooting the two National Guard troops in Washington nearly killed a third before he was captured, according to the court records. Ramanullah Lakhanwal was seen on surveillance video staking out the area near the metro station for roughly a minute before shouting Allah Akbar and opening fire. Gee, if only once again there was just some sort of indication as to what partially motivated the terrorist attack here. But let's not read too much into the Allah Akbar thing. The charging document reveals that Lockenwall shot soldier guardsman Beckstrom in the back of the head before delivering another headshot to guardsman Andrew Wolf. Lockenwall then chased and shot at an unnamed National Guard major, the document alleges. Lockenwall, who made his first appearance in local court yesterday, is charged with murder while armed, possession of a firearm during a crime of violence, and assault with intent to kill while armed, leading a judge to order him jailed without bond. Beckstrom died from her wounds Thanksgiving Day. Wolf fighting for his life under medical care, officials said. Court records do not yet, this is again as of yesterday evening, list an attorney for Lockenwall. A National Guard member identified in the document as Reynolds quickly, quote, engaged the shooter after the shots rang out, and the suspect was shot and fell to the ground. An unnamed guardsman then jumped on the defendant as the defendant was attempting to reload, police wrote. Reynolds, the unnamed National Guard's member, and Secret Service officers then worked together to restrain the shooter, according to the documents. Lockenwall came to the U.S. under the Biden administration's humanitarian parole program for migrants. A source familiar with the matter previously told Daily Caller News Foundation. He also served in a CIA counterterrorism program during the war in Afghanistan, according to USA Today. So that is the latest information that has come out regarding this particular shooting, and I suspect that this is going to not get near the attention that it's due, because it highlights the real-life results of the previous administration's policies. And that is something that, generally speaking, the results of Democrat policies, generally speaking, most people don't like. And it's why they have to obscure, mislead, and sometimes outright lie or censor the results of those policies, because they recognize, even they recognize, that it doesn't work in their favor. Let's jump over to traffic. I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, come spring, you're going to, I know it seems like a ways away. We just sort of got into winter in recent days, but that springtime hits, you want to get out. All of a sudden, 56 degrees feels like it's nice, and we can wear shorts. The sun is shining because we're just so anxious as human beings to get out there and enjoy it. And it may be the time of the year you think, man, I just wish we had I wish it was nicer out here. I wish we had an area to actually sit and enjoy. I wish that I had an outdoor kitchen or an area to watch whatever on television, that you like to watch on TV, just in the outdoors and do that. But to have it done right takes a little time, takes a lot of prep. And if you want to have the best do it, I recommend contacting them now. Reach out, let them know that not right now, but come springtime, this is something that you're wanting to get done. And so you can begin the planning, get an idea of what you're looking at. They do have a cost estimation calculator as well on their website, give you a ballpark idea. And you can see some of their before and after work also. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, hunterhardscapes.com is the site. If you forget it, don't worry, it's under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. The Republican Congress's motto is vote for us. We will maintain spending at Biden levels and continue to consistently raise the debt ceiling. We don't mind shutting the government down because we can't pass a constitutionally mandated budget. We are the best. Help us spend the dollar into oblivion. Slower than the Democrats. A winning plan for sure. And, this is another excellent point. I was earlier referencing, I think that the concern Republicans should have is that their voters could not tell you, and I would be considered one of the base voters. I get out, I vote every election, and it's going to be, tends to be Republican. I'm sure there have been some exceptions in the past, but I can't tell you what the plan is. I can tell you what they say, we're going to fix health care. We're going to come up with a plan. And I do believe that there are individual members of Congress that have a passion for doing that. But when you have leadership like Mike Johnson that likes to come out and tell you why those things can't be done, because I can already hear it, we just don't have the margins. And so why am I to get, what is it to motivate, to get Republican voters excited? But to even further the point, you can't, what are you going to tell me? Oh, because we need to get spending under control? Well, who's been in charge? And for people who are voters that have a passion or just a mature, responsible understanding of fiscal responsibility, voting for the Republican Party doesn't satisfy that any longer. News in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome everyone. This is a very busy week. For one, we have Santa's Angels underway with our good friends at Wheeler Metals sponsoring the event this year where we team up with you folks in order to make sure that kids in the area that I say don't have parents. The reality is they do have parents, but they're parents that are not good parents. And so they are not with these parents. And that means, these kids, many of them have never had a Christmas in their life. And we work to change that. And we do that with your help. The kids with KVC Missouri are location sponsors where we have trees for kids to be adopted. You go in and you grab a kid off the tree. They aren't the actual kids, of course, but these paper ornaments, boys and girls with their first name, their age, and their wish list. And Crown Power and Equipment, one of those locations, Mexican Villa on South Campbell, another Greene County Freight and Food Sales, and Pinnaker Chevy in Republic being the fourth location. Now, Mexican Villa had run out, but we had an extra kid that came through, and so that was placed on that tree yesterday, if it hasn't been adopted already. I was over at Greene County Freight and Food Sales on West Kearney yesterday, and there were 3 kids left there. Not sure for the Pinnaker Chevy Republic location or Crown Power and Equipment location. So, those are areas that, in all likelihood, still do have some kids on the trees. You can stop by, and we ask you to make that adoption. And we've got details at ksgf.com, plus on the ornament/paper tag itself that tells you when and where items need to be dropped off, not wrapped, and so forth. So that is going on. Also at ksgf.com, you can register to win tickets to see Guns N' Roses. Now, the tickets for their performance, Thunder Ridge Nature Arena, Saturday, September 12th of 2026, go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. You can register to win a pair of tickets up until 9 a.m. on Friday by going to ksgf.com. And then we do also have our school back in session, and it has been obviously for some time now. Teachers Lounge Pizza Party with Godfather's Pizza. Your chance to win a pizza party. The pizza parties are always in the classroom in school, right? Well, not with Godfather's Pizza. Register to win, and if you do, then wherever you work, whatever school, will have pizzas delivered for your teacher lounge. And Teachers Lounge. And then, of course, Friday, we have Heroes Breakfast, free breakfast for veterans, 6A to 9A, this Friday at Scramblers, thanks to Scramblers, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, Delta Roofing, The Warrior's Journey. And finally, we will have happy hour, 4 to 6 this Friday, Vineyard Market. I think I got everything in there.
I think you did.
I was really firing on all cylinders.
And guess what? If you missed any of it, ksgf.com.
Boom. I did learn that Barry will not be joining us from Pinnaker, from the Pinnaker family at Scramblers on Friday. He apparently, I've been told, is on vacation. Now, the person with whom I communicate over there about all of this, and she's somebody that I know, I said, why don't you come on? And she says, well, I was thinking about it. She goes, is there a slot later than? I was like, well, actually, it's not 6. It's around 6:05. And she said, well, I'll see if I can make it. So we may have someone new for you to meet to fill in for Barry. But otherwise, I'll just remind you about they still have these incredible holiday Honda event thing going on where it's 30 or 90 days until payments on new vehicles. So you're talking about March at this point. But they also have a great number of leases if you're a lease person. 26 Honda HR-V lease for $359 a month. The CR-V lease for $199 a month. Incredible deal there. Of course, all sorts of terms and rates apply as well. But you can learn more by visiting Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, or get to them via the web, ksgf.com, under Nick's endorsements. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m., otherwise cloudy with a low around 19. Wind chill values as low as 10. Thursday, partly sunny skies with a high near 36. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
The White House is in a fight with Sabrina Carpenter because, of course, they are. Have you seen this battle?
Yeah.
As soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what it was about. Everybody's these celebrities are so predictable. Uh, the the I don't know if you have seen any of these, but the administration likes to make, I would call them, cheerleading videos for ICE and Homeland Security, demonstrating the deportation process as part of national security. And they will put well-liked or popular songs along with it. And sometimes the theme of the song itself is almost humorous with the theme. And this isn't the first artist that has been upset by the fact that their music is being used in this way. And honestly, I don't know if some of this isn't deliberate, because it just gives it more attention. And I think the administration sees that as a positive thing. Because for a couple of reasons. One, it is drawing attention to the fact that, look, we are carrying out deportations. And the videos generally highlight that, these aren't nursery owners, or, the people that are the grandmas baking cookies that have been in that's not who we're talking about here. It's dangerous murders and rapists and so forth. But it also shows the divide in this country between the rich elites and the Trump administration, and that it's the rich elites, oftentimes rich white women, that are on one side of this issue, while so many Americans are on the other side of it. And I believe that they view that as a pretty positive narrative. Is it worth it? I don't know. But Sabrina Carpenter, if you're not familiar with her, she's very popular artist. And the video, which was set to her hit song Juno, she said was to do that, said it was evil and disgusting. This is what she posted on X, saying, "Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." When asked about the singer's comment, White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said, "Here's a short and sweet message for Sabrina Carpenter. We won't apologize for deporting dangerous criminal, illegal murderers, rapists, and pedophiles from our country. Anyone who would defend these sick monsters must be stupid, or is it slow? Question mark." And so, of course, the clash going back and forth. I'm just going to use this opportunity to make a point that I made when Chappell Roan was in the news for this same reason. It wasn't because of her music being used. I think she just, at one of her concerts, was, cursing ICE and the people who dedicate their laws to, or their lives and safety to enforcing our laws. And these people, these artists, make a significant portion of their money, whether it's directly or indirectly, due to concerts that depend on security to a larger degree than virtually any other sort of venue that you find in this country. They have you ever gone to a concert? I mean, you have to stand in line. You have to, prove that you purchased your way to get in. Oftentimes, I know this summer took the wife and the girl child and one of her friends to the Lumineers in Kansas City at the Sprint Center. And once we went in, you couldn't even leave. If you left, you weren't allowed back in. No exceptions. Security everywhere. Even after you get, and not just one level of security, you get through that first level of security, and that is through the door. Well, then you get into the actual area with the seating, whatever that's called. And especially if you're going to get down further to a further level, you have to show your ticket to another person. We were down in the pit, so I think we had to show our ticket to 3 or 4 different people just to get down there. And we had to do it every single time. So if we decided that we were going to head up and grab something and come back down, then we had to go through the whole process again. And I recognize that as extremely hypocritical. I call on people like Sabrina Carpenter, who have a problem requiring people who want to come into this country to do it legally. I call on them to stop requiring their concerts to only be open to people who buy tickets. If you are going to demand that our country operate when it comes to who comes in and out and enjoys the benefit of this country, then you need to walk the walk yourself. You need to live by your own words and your own lecturing. First off, no security. How dare she, or any of these other artists who curse ICE, who curse Homeland Security, who curse any of these agencies who are tasked with making sure that that border is secure, how dare she have security at these venues? Making sure that people have to show their, quote, papers, i.e. the ticket, in order to get in. What does she think would happen if they found someone who came in without the proper identification, somebody snuck in? They would be removed immediately. And if they put up some sort of fight or struggle, there would be force used in order to remove that individual. Do you think Sabrina Carpenter would have a problem with this? I don't think she'd even be bothered by it. When this sort of thing does happen, she probably doesn't even get informed because it doesn't matter to her. She's just concerned about making sure that everyone who paid for the ticket are the people who came in, and she has the luxury of knowing that in order to see her concert, there are numerous people whose job it is to make sure that only the people who are supposed to be there legitimately are allowed through. These people on the left, and it's always these rich liberals, are so hypocritical. They're such posers. And their elite status of expecting the rest of us to live by a completely separate set of rules while they get to have their security, whether it's a concert or the gated community, or, well, you shouldn't have the right to bear arms, but I get to have my own private security that carries firearms. Everything about their life is I should get to live in a manner that I want to live, but that doesn't apply to the little people. And if there's any message that the White House is going to send out, and I understand that, my thoughts on this aren't necessarily the sort of thoughts that can be summed up in a simple posting on X. But I just really wish that whether it's Sabrina Carpenter or any of these other celebrities whose job is based on security and vetting people, thousands of people at any given concert to make sure that they are legitimately there, they legitimately purchased a ticket, they legitimately have a right to be there, and all the levels and layers of security. I just wish once one of these individuals was presented with that reality and forced to answer to it. Because of all the different people in this country, of all the different careers, they have the least amount of room to talk. Because they are everything they claim they abhor. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. No, you sneak into the concert, then you get to stay and get free merch. This is in reference to the feud going on between the White House and the artist Sabrina Carpenter, and one of her songs were used along with a video put out highlighting deportation. And she was just appalled and disgusted by this inhumane behavior. And one of the things I just have such a problem with these celebrities who rail against security for our country when every single one of their concerts are some of the most secure locations that you never can get into unless you pass numerous levels of security, particularly if you're down within the better seats. You have to show your, quote, papers at every turn. If you don't have them, you don't get in. And those people who live that life, who demand that luxury for themselves, then rail against the United States of America and the country, and those of us as citizens who get impacted by this stuff when we demand that same level of security for our own country. And I just think it's reasonable to expect these people to walk the walk. And to this person's point, if somebody like Sabrina Carpenter is going to be consistent and not just a virtue signaler and not a hypocrite, then yeah, these people should not only be able to sneak into the concert, but then get moved to the head of the line if they get caught. Free concessions, get to bring family members in. Oh, you find out, you go and you make your way down with your legitimate ticket, and you find out that one of them's already in your seat. Well, they're just looking for a better view. That's all. You can't kick them out. Why is it none of these artists behave that way? Why is it none of these artists encourage or demand that sort of treatment of people who aren't legitimately in a concert? Because they're full of crap. That's why. We got traffic update. The Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m., otherwise cloudy with a low around 19. For your Thursday, partly sunny with a high near 36. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
It isn't just celebrities like Sabrina Carpenter that demand a level of security for their concerts that they rail against when it comes to our country itself and its national security. But any of these events with rich celebrities, and I want to say it was the announcement of the Super Bowl halftime show, Bad Bunny. And there were a lot of people. There was a backlash because he said that he wasn't going to perform in the United States any longer because of the United States enforcing its border security laws and immigration laws. And so he would not perform here because of that. Well, until the Super Bowl gig came along, and then he suddenly, his moral outrage subsided just to some degree. But then there was talk, people on the left. And if it wasn't this event, it was some big celebrity event. But anyhow, they were talking about how horrible it was that ICE was going to be out there because someone in the administration, maybe it was Kristi Noem, like, yeah, at high-profile events like this, of course, we're going to have security out there, and that includes ICE. And, oh, it was so horrible, so awful. How awful that was that immigration enforcement would be outside some sort of event like that. Well, why don't you just invite them inside then? Just have them come in. Give them security inside. Let them watch the game. Let them have a seat at the Oscars. Let them sit and take up as many rows as they want at the Tonys. Oh, see, we're not going to do that. No. Well, you have to be approved to get into an event like that. You can't just come in uninvited. You have to have tickets. Not just anyone can come in. See? This is why these people have no credibility. And what is crazy to me is people on the left who, in their minds, tell themselves that they can't stand the rich elites who want some separate set of rules for them than anyone else. They're lumped right in with them. They're cheerleading. They are cheerleading the richest people in this country who openly demand that they get to live by a separate set of rules than everyone else. And who's their biggest cheerleaders? Left-wing extremists and Democrat activists. PJ Media has a story that has been circulating. A TSA agent. This would be under the title of Women in Democrat World in 2025. Despite his name and his demands that the rest of us play pretend along with him, Danielle Mitterder is a man. He's a TSA agent. And he is claiming that it is his civil right as a man who identifies as a woman to be able to do physical pat-downs of women that go through security. That includes, feeling all the way up to your crotch and feeling around your breasts, fumbling around. It's his right. This is what women face in America due to Democrat policies. PJ Media writing, despite his delusions and fantasies are more likely in the age of absurdity because of them. He is also a TSA agent. That's absurd enough in itself. A man who is in the grip of severe confusion and delusion doesn't seem on the face of it to be well suited to the job of identifying and stopping potential terrorists, but the story gets worse from there. Since Mitterer's bosses at the TSA are aware that the name of the agency is not the Transgender Security Administration because they also know that he is really a man, they don't allow him to pat down women. That made him angry, and so he is suing them. Because it is his right as a man to be able to get paid to feel up women. Now, which of the two political parties do you suppose are going to be on his side or are on his side? The one that we're told is the party of women. Then you've got this story, which is similar in fashion when it comes to women's safety. And increasingly, the second tier status that women are being forced to live under anywhere that Democrat policies have their implementation, their influence, and their way. A female NYU student, so liberal land, female NYU student refuses to be silent, posts terrifying surveillance video of her assault. A female New York University student refused to be silent after being attacked on her way to class and posted the surveillance video online of her terrifying assault, bringing attention to it, which would eventually result in the arrest of the alleged suspect, whom, of course, because it's New York, had been it's got a rap sheet. But he gets put right back out on the street in order to endanger the lives of women. In videos posted by Amelia Lewis on her social media account, the student shares the details of what happened on Monday while she was on her way to class when someone came up behind her, hit her, and then yanked her to the ground. Quote, "When I turned around, I saw this old white guy, and right when I turned around, he grabbed my hair like this and yanked me and threw me to the ground." Amelia credited her best friend with getting the surveillance footage from a nearby liquor store that she would send to NYU, which then sent it to the NYPD. She said it turns out the alleged attacker had done this before and is suspected of other assaults on young ladies on or around campus. She said, "I just really want to emphasize how not okay this is. I'm a student at NYU. I should not be scared to be walking the streets to go to my 9:30 a.m. class. These people are disgusting. They should not be able to be walking around the streets." When I listen to just how judgmental she is. Quote, "Honestly, I'm still in shock, but I'm more enraged that things like this are able to happen in this city, and we really need to do something about it because this is unacceptable." This is New York City, honey. I mean, I don't know what you expect. The one thing that amazes me is when people who live in these cities that are run by Democrats declare that this is unacceptable. Not in cities run by Democrats. And while she may not be, I don't know what her political persuasion is, not everyone in a Democrat-run city supports these sorts of policies, but to be unaware that this is the way that it is. This is a girl, the only reason this is getting attention is because her friend did the footwork, went to a liquor store to get the surveillance video and turned it over to NYU, which then in turn turned it over to the New York Police Department, because otherwise she was treated like most women who get assaulted in New York City. And that is to know, well, this is New York City. It's the Big Apple. It's the price you pay for being a woman. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. We once again have a little bit of winter weather moving in, so make sure that your home is ready to handle that cold weather coming our way. And the best way to do that is with Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, the Foreman team, they can tackle all of your HVAC needs, whether you need a service repair, inspections, new unit installs, they do it all and so much more. And they can also help you out whether you have a furnace, a boiler, a heat pump. They've definitely got you covered. And say something does happen, say you have a breakdown and it's kind of a weird hour, maybe it's like 5:30, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. The Foreman team, they have an emergency service line so they can tackle those breakdowns that pop up after what is considered those normal business hours. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's an interesting report released regarding the tenure thus far of Kash Patel as FBI director. It's like apparently these are done every so often. It's an assessment of the state of affairs within the FBI. And the New York Post had a piece surrounding this or regarding this titled, "Damning Report Labels FBI Rudderless Ship Under Kash Patel, with him and Dan Bongino more concerned with building personal resumes." And I found it interesting because the report is self-declared not to be a hit piece on them, noting, hey, listen, there are a lot of positive things said as well. And what I found interesting were the reasons that internally there were complaints about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino versus the reasons for praise. And Miranda Devine has a piece in the New York Post on this. I just want to share with you some excerpts on this because I've drawn what I think is some insight into what's going on here, the culture of the FBI, that in all honesty isn't necessarily bad for Patel or Dan Bongino. And she writes that FBI Director Kash Patel facing withering criticism from an alliance of active duty and retired agents and analysts days after the White House denied media reports that the president is about to fire him. A troubling new report card on the first 6 months of Patel's leadership concludes that he is, quote, in over his head, and his deputy, Dan Bongino, is, quote, something of a clown. This according to the alliance, which in 2 previous reports warned about crippling DEI and politicization of the FBI during the Biden administration. Now, I don't know if this is the point of noting that, but I think it is significant to note that this grouping, this entity within the FBI that is writing up this report card isn't some sort of grouping that was like protectors of Joe Biden or anything. They've under the Biden administration were sounding the warning about DEI and all of this stuff and saying that this is really bad stuff. So point being is they haven't demonstrated that they are necessarily really partisan towards one party or the other. The Patel-led FBI is described in the 115-page report as a rudderless ship and all, quote, effed up. Patel is described by multiple internal sources as inexperienced, with one source saying that he has neither the breadth or experience nor the bearing an FBI director needs to be successful. Now, bear with me, because I understand if you don't like to hear this, you think that this is just throwing mud and all it is dogging on Patel. Stick with me, because there's an important aspect to this. Another source, a self-proclaimed Trump supporter, said Patel is, quote, not very good, may be insecure, and lacks the requisite experience or the measured self-confidence to be FBI director. However, an additional source described him as very personable and likable, while noting he created a culture of mistrust and uncertainty among the ranks. Some of the heavy criticism stems from Patel's behavior in Salt Lake City after the Charlie Kirk assassination. He's accused of giving premature public remarks that potentially jeopardized the investigation, taking credit for the work of other agencies when the suspect was arrested, and for yelling and swearing at the agent in charge. Both he and Bongino were criticized for arrogance and an unfortunate obsession with social media. One source said they need to, quote, stop talking, stop posing, and just be professional. Another said they are spending too much time on social media and public relations and are too often concerned with building their own personal resumes. The report was written in the style of an official FBI intelligence assessment, analyzing reports from 24 FBI sources and sub-sources and using anecdotes to illustrate troubling themes. The case of the medium-sized raid jacket is one example. On September 11, 25, the day after Kirk was assassinated, Patel flew into Provo, Utah on the FBI jet, but, quote, would not disembark from the plane without an FBI raid jacket, according to Alpha 99, a highly respected source who has served in the FBI for multiple decades. Patel apparently did not have his own FBI raid jacket with him and refused to step off the plane without wearing one, according to the report. FBI special agents at the Salt Lake City field office, busy working on the Kirk case, had to stop and ask around to find an FBI raid jacket, a medium-sized one that would fit. When a jacket belonging to a female agent was delivered to Patel on the plane, he complained that, quote, 2 areas of the upper sleeves did not have Velcro patches attached. Patel would not leave the plane until he had 2 patches to cover those areas, so members of an FBI SWAT team took patches off their uniforms and ran those patches over to Patel at the airport. The patches were then attached to the loaner FBI raid jacket, and Patel disembarked from the plane. Patel did not make a positive impression, said Alpha 99. The director was not happy with the way the investigation was going and had earlier yelled at Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles and directed an expletive-laden tirade over perceived blunders in the case. Bongino later called Bowles and apologized for Patel's tirade, saying that it should have never happened, according to the source. Alpha 99 also said Patel, quote, did a disservice to the FBI by breaking with Bureau tradition and norms, by taking credit for the good work by other agencies in the Kirk case, and seemed to imply the results achieved in the investigation would not have been possible without Patel's involvement. In another situation at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, Patel was said to be upset when he heard about a discussion that took place among a few dozen FBI personnel about his request that he be issued an FBI firearm. When details of the discussion were leaked, Patel ordered everyone to get polygraphs to find out who had criticized him, according to the source, named Alpha 95, who is described as a highly respected leader and person of integrity. Alpha 95 was dismayed by the order to conduct polygraph examinations, which were needlessly punitive. But to demonstrate the internal resistance facing Patel, the report says that Trump derangement syndrome does remain alive and well under left-leaning factions embedded within the ranks of the FBI, and FBI personnel openly express disdain for the president. One source blames past recruitment policies which prioritized hiring teachers who were more left-leaning in their personal views. Televisions and FBI field offices are now reported to be turned to leftist channel MSNBC and CNN, but not Fox News. The report, subtitled A Pulse Check of the First 6 Months of Patel's Leadership, will be presented to the House and Senate Judiciary Committees this week. It, quote, was never intended to be a hit piece in any way, shape, or form, said the authors, who requested anonymity to avoid jeopardizing their positions. But the anecdotal reporting from FBI personnel skewered 80-20 negative. There is good news for Patel in the report card. Okay, so now, 80-20, bad, good. So you got a sense of the bad. Now the good. The rollback of DEI policies under Patel is welcomed by multiple sources who say it has reduced the administrative burden. One source described immigration raids, which the FBI assists ICE, as, quote, overwhelmingly successful. Quote, those individuals being swept up in the raids are criminals and they are dangerous, not otherwise law-abiding grandmas who have been here for 20 years, as reported by some media outlets, according to the report. Another source applauded the fact that casework and threats are now the priority. And even most of those assigned to FBI headquarters who are being kicked back out to the field acknowledge that the prioritization is a positive move. While FBI morale elsewhere remained low, one source reported high morale amongst personnel working in counterterrorism and criminal investigation in the FBI Field Office Joint Task Force who, quote, unlike during the previous administration in the White House, are completely supported by the DOJ and the FBI Field Office's respective U.S. Attorney's Office. Another source reported, quote, operational effectiveness has improved because prosecutors are being more aggressive to stay in the administration's favor. Patel's firing of a number of senior executives deemed complicit in past abuses was welcomed by one source, but reforms have not gone deep enough and should be brought to the mid-management level. The authors say they would like nothing more than for the FBI and Patel to succeed for the greater good of the nation, but that redemption and resurrection of this proud agency will never be achieved unless there's full transparency to expose critical culture and operational deficiencies. They conclude by advising the notoriously thin-skinned Patel and Bongino need to heed the criticism if they want to exceed. Now, let me tell you what I get from this. And Miranda Devine is a pretty straightforward, facts-only sort of individual, and so I don't believe that she is presenting an unfair evaluation overview of this report and her breakdown that 80% of it was negative while 20% was positive. But what was negative? What are some of the big takeaways, examples of how Patel has done a bad job? It's personality stuff. If you believe the stories, let's say that the stories are true, and they don't like the fact that he, which is somewhat amusing because on one hand they argue that we need more transparency, but then they complain that they're on social media, he and Bongino too much, they're out there talking to the media too much, and that they need to do that less. They don't like that aspect of their personality. The jacket incident, that he wouldn't leave the airplane until he had an FBI raid jacket, and that he got upset whenever he was hearing openly within the FBI agents criticizing him for wanting a firearm. While if these things are true, they may be totally valid criticisms, these are personality things. So the 20% that was good, what was it? Actual meaningful results. Massive sweeps, getting criminals off the street, refocusing on the things that matter. Actual needed support for agents, restructuring things in a way that are allowing agents to actually spend more time doing the job of getting the bad guys as opposed to just paperwork and administrative bureaucratic BS. Now, while the report, in terms of volume, 80% of it may have been negative stuff, while 20% was the positive stuff, but in terms of significance and importance, that 20% seems to be very, very, very important. And if I would have to do some sort of trade-off, just looking again at the way that this report's being presented, I would much rather have someone in there who maybe doesn't have a personality that's loved by everyone in the FBI and maybe wants to be in front of the camera a little too much, as long as the results are a massive improvement, which according to this report, that's exactly what they are. As opposed to somebody like, I don't know, a James Comey, that just knows how to, quote, act like an FBI director, and everyone thinks he's so wonderful and bipartisan and above board, but in the meantime is doing what he can in order to undercut the government and to overthrow a presidency. I'm not saying that there's not room for improvement. When it comes to the social media stuff, I think that that's Trump. Trump believes in making sure people know about successes, and I suspect that a lot of their insistency on utilizing social media comes from Trump. and his desire to make sure people know exactly what's going on. And and look, nobody's perfect. But if the bulk of the criticisms about Bongino and Patel are about their personality, and the bulk of the praise is about the actual results improving the overall outcome of what it is the FBI is supposed to be doing, that seems like a pretty good report to me. We got Heroes Breakfast coming up Friday, and we also have happy hour at Vineyard Market, 4 to 6 on Friday. Just a reminder, news coming up next. Springfield's Talk 1041. Streaming live, KSGF.com. KSGF app, great place to also not only listen to the show live, but catch any of the podcasts. You can get those Spotify, iTunes as well. Ozarks elder law not planning for, it's not even the unexpected. It is the expected, isn't it? I mean, you buy insurance in case you get into a car accident, or you have homeowners insurance in case your house burns down, or there's all these in case situations that we will pay monthly in order to protect ourselves from. Death is not unexpected, may not come when we plan it to, but it's going to happen. And so many of us don't protect those we leave behind for that moment. I shouldn't say in case, when it does happen. And that is, who gets what. Or if something unexpected does happen where there are medical decisions that need to be made, but you are unable to make them for yourself, who makes those decisions for you? Well, my wife does. I'm married. Doesn't work that way. Hospitals may defer to you if they want, don't have to. Plus, every state's different. There's so many different things that you need to protect yourselves from government involvement that people don't, even though we know that some of these things are inevitable, like death. And the kicker is, again, when you compare it to insurance, well, in case something happens and you pay monthly, to get yourself set and you protected and your family protected, it's a one-time cost. And you know ahead of time what it is. And by ahead of time, I mean consultation is free to find out what you need to do with Ozarks Elder Law. Then they tell you, here's the one cost in order to get it done. Bam. 10 area locations. You can find them at ozarkselderlaw.com. Also, under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. So yesterday, there was a cabinet meeting, and Trump had the media there and allowed his people to talk to the media. Of course, one of the issues that the left is desperately trying to now torpedo the administration, or at least diminish its effectiveness, is to essentially paint the administration as a bunch of war criminals. And can we just note for a moment, this is some of what's so ridiculous about all of this. The Trump administration, whether one agrees with what they're doing or not, is not doing anything that previous administrations have not done. I mean, none of this is new. Utilizing our military to take out a target here or there, oftentimes in the name of fighting the war on drugs. Now, sometimes, like the Obama administration, he was using drones left and right to just kill civilians. One of which was a 16-year-old American kid who was hanging out with his dad in Yemen. Innocent kid, not even suspected of anything. He just happened to be the son of someone that Obama thought might be a terrorist. No charge, no trial. Do you know Obama did that like 480 separate times? You had Clinton with Bosnia, not to mention the aspirin factory in Iraq. I mean, you could just go through the list, and oftentimes it may be poor judgment. Sometimes it was better judgment. Sometimes it was a gamble. You didn't know for sure. But this idea, particularly coming from these dishonest Democrats, that this is just uncharted territory here. No, it is not. It's nowhere close to uncharted territory. This is standard stuff. You may not like it. You may not believe that it should be standard stuff, but these people who are portraying, who support Obama when he does it, and Biden and Clinton, and any time a Democrat does it, and will support any future Democrat that does it, acting as if they are appalled and concerned, and we're just on the wrong side of things here, they are lying to you. One of the big points of contention here, where they really think they got him, and it originated from a Washington Post story, which, by the way, turned out to be so full of holes, even the New York Times is calling out the Washington Post for fake news. and that is claiming that Pete Hegseth was on the line directing the shooting of one of these narco-terrorist boats that was heading towards the United States or somewhere to get drugs into the United States, and that the first missile took out the boat but left two individuals alive that were stranded and trying to surrender, and Hegseth said, "Finish them off." And so then at his direction, they fired a missile to kill those two innocent people, or potentially innocent people. Well, it's turned out, of course, that that story is not true. One of the things I find really fascinating, though, and I just, big on consistency. The same people, and they're Democrats, who are so obsessed with the notion that perhaps two of these narco terrorists survived the initial attack and then were finished off instead of being saved. They're just, I mean, this is the moral imperative to figure out whether this happened or not, are the same people who say that if a baby survives an abortion, should go ahead and be killed off. Now figure that one out. If you're an innocent baby and you survive an attempt on your life, they believe you should be finished off. If you're a narco-terrorist, however, that individual deserves their complete and utter loyalty and attention. See, it's just all priorities and perspective. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m., otherwise cloudy with a low around 19. For your Thursday, partly sunny with a high near 36. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
All right, so the Washington Post hit piece trying to paint Hegseth as using our military to kill innocent people. It's so poorly written, so full of just fake news. Even the New York Times, the New York Times of all outfits, called him out and saying that story is not true. Here is Trump and Hegseth yesterday on the issue of taking out the narco terrorists.
Say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves and allow them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either, sir,
but down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach. And I will just end by saying, as President Trump always has our back, we always have the back of our commanders who are making decisions in difficult situations, and we do in this case and all these strikes. They're making judgment calls and ensuring that they defend the American people. They've done the right things. We'll keep doing that, and we have their backs, Mr. President.
Good job.
A couple of points there in that discussion with Trump and Hegseth. One, Hegseth said something that got a little bit of laughter because on one hand, it just seems so obvious, almost as if he's making a joke when he says that's the point. When Trump noted that the number of these boats attempting to ship drugs into the United States has been diminished down to like 8 or 9%. And Hegseth made the comment that, yeah, we're actually in a bit of a pause right now because we're finding a difficult time locating more of these boats to sink. And everyone kind of chuckles. He's like, but that's the point. And that seems like such an obvious thing to say. But you got to understand, the left, that's not how their minds work. Their minds don't work. That is a concept that, particularly with government, I mean, just look at results of government. When does government ever work? You find rare instances. Now, here's one where it is working, and they're all going nuts over it. An exchange that took place just a few months ago but illustrates this point so significantly, and that was when a reporter asked, well, why don't you just have the Coast Guard pull the boats over and then, search the boats? And Trump said, because that doesn't work. We've been doing that for decades. You could just, the difference in it's so simple. Trump, that doesn't work. Oh, so? The name of the game in government is, if it doesn't work, you keep doing it. Do more of it. Look around you. That's how everything operates. If it doesn't work, keep doing it. Obamacare is a perfect, you can just give examples left and right. Everyone, even Democrats right now, acknowledge Obamacare has made things worse. Well, what would be the obvious thing to do? Stop doing it then. Well, you can't do that. Oh my gosh, you can't get rid of Obamacare. Why not just pull him over? Have the Coast Guard just search. Why don't you do it that way? That's what we've been doing. It does not work. Oh, that doesn't compute. The other comment that was made there, Hegseth noting that, listen, we back our commanders in this stuff. They're making, tough decisions, and, that we have their back. What a refreshing, but at the same time unfortunate, when you juxtapose it and that atmosphere versus the atmosphere Democrats create for people in our military right now. I mean, you have, and is it any wonder that there were record low recruitments under the previous administration, and now we're seeing record high recruitments? It's the difference between knowing that, one, you have a mission that actually makes sense, but also people who are proud of you, who recognize what an incredible job you're doing, and they have your back, versus Democrats that are running around trying to convince people that National Guard members are just going to shoot random civilians and that the military is just an institution that Trump is using against civilians. And warning people in the military, you have a duty to disobey orders that you may not agree with. If you think they're illegal, it's your duty. Warning them that once Democrats are in charge, we may come after you. Democrat Senator Slotkin compared it to the Nuremberg trials, reminding active duty soldiers that just like the Nazis said they were just following orders, that didn't save them. She actually used that as an example. So between the two political parties in this country, you have one that has the back of the people in the military, that has very straightforward America First missions, and another that is painting them as a bunch of people that are at any given moment going to start shooting civilians and comparing them to Nazis. It's just shocking that recruitment when Democrats are in charge of things is down, while recruitment when Trump and Hegseth and Rubio, he's in the Secretary of State side, but just all of these people are in charge, that recruitment is at record highs. Can't imagine. It's almost like Democrat-run states. People leave them and they go to Republican-run states. Just can't figure this stuff out. It's such a complicated formula, isn't it? Trump made comments also yesterday regarding, well, specifically Ilhan Omar and the recent revelations that are at least revelations to the general public at large about the billions and billions of taxpayer fraud that the Somali community almost daily is new information about Tim Waltz and his covering it up, his going after whistleblowers. Hundreds of government employees have gone public about the fact that he was told this and he punished us if we didn't keep our mouths shut. They released on an X feed their communication to the Kamala Harris campaign when it was that he was on the short list for her vice presidential candidate, saying, do not pick this guy. This guy's corrupt. This is what's going on. But, you know, the more corrupt you are, that's a resume enhancer for Democrats. Probably helped him get that slot. One of the things people don't recognize, but perhaps all of this can be enlightening regarding Somalia. And Trump illustrated it as not really even being a country. Yeah, I mean, it's on a map, it has a name, but it does not function like a country. It is just one giant feeding frenzy of corruption and gangs and killing. There's no functioning government. And just by survival necessity, people who grow up in that culture have to learn to live like that. Because if you don't, then you become a victim. Well, when you import collectively large groups of people, and that is their culture, into another culture, you're going to have a clash. This, of course, is an opportunity for the media and Democrats to cry racism instead of dealing with actual reality. What will surely be fuel to the fire was Trump's comments yesterday regarding specifically Ilhan Omar.
We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Now, the last comment he made is one that I think a reasonable person can find difficulty disagreeing with. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what race you are, what gender. If you choose to come here and you hate this place, this was your choice. I am so sick and tired of this demand that people who hate us come here and then trash on us. You don't have to be here. Well, but even Trump acknowledges Somalia is awful. There are a lot of other countries in this world. A lot of other countries in this world that clearly are closer to your values by your own admission. I guess part of it is that I just can't fathom up and deciding that I'm going to move to another country, just choose to do it, that has completely different values than I do, and then spend the entire time complaining, griping, and demanding that that culture change to my values when I don't have to be there. You know, people, they sometimes feel uncomfortable with the verbiage, go back where you came from, because that was something that for a period of time was synonymous with people who are racist. Just telling people who weren't doing anything bad or didn't hate the country, but, go back to where you came from, for just perhaps even racist reasons. But that's not what this is. In fact, Trump, if you notice, he's talking about a specific mindset and a specific attitude, because this is all in the context of the people like Ilhan Omar who come here and then, just in his words, bitch about everything. And note, the people culturally that her, quote, friends, these are largely the people that are ripping off taxpayers and so forth, Why on earth is it wrong to say we don't want people here who hate us? Do we expect any other country to behave in any other or any organization? If you're part of some left-wing organization, would you accept somebody that was a conservative who hated you to come to your meetings and to stand up and constantly tell you how awful? Of course you wouldn't. This is going to repeat or be repeated in the same fashion in which, Trump, when he was talking about countries like Mexico, that when they are able to release or send some of their people into the United States, they're not doing doctors and engineers. They send the ones that they don't want, like rapists and murderers. And the media turned that into Trump said Mexicans are rapists and murderers when he said no such thing. And this is going to turn into Trump said that all Somalis are garbage, which is not the point he was making. But even if it were, just recognize this for a moment. The people who will be outraged, the political party that will be outraged at what they claim is Donald Trump referring to an entire people are garbage, are the same people who stood behind Joe Biden that referred to Americans who didn't support him as what? Garbage. So this is again an instance in which, when it really comes down to it, the Democrat Party, whether they support, stand behind, or defend Americans or people who aren't, look at what side they're on again, once again. Let's do traffic. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 45. Tonight a chance of flurries between 11 and 2 a.m., otherwise cloudy with a low around 19. For your Thursday, partly sunny with a high near 36. And taking a look at Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 46.
I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs, you got refinancing needs or questions. You don't know if you have them or not. Maybe you're like, I don't know. Do I? What about refinancing? Well, I got great interest rates. One of my favorite stories that one of the characters relayed I don't know, months ago, it may have been a year ago even, was a refinancing situation in which the client refinanced at a higher rate, but still ended up saving money. Long term, and when it came to monthly payments. And it had to do with other debt that, was part of the equation and so forth. And while that clearly isn't going to be the case for everyone, if you have in your mind that there's no point to even look at refinancing because of the interest rate you have, and current interest rates are higher, don't let that roadblock you, because you may still be able to come out ahead. Maybe not. Only one way to find out. Reach out to the Carrickers and their team. It's easy. They're great to deal with. And it doesn't cost you anything to just learn the information to find out whether or not you can get a better deal than you currently have. That costs you nothing. And it all starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Marco Rubio, I would say at this point, in terms of communicating effectively what it is that the Trump administration is doing at any given time, there is no one that has proven to be better than Marco Rubio. He has the ability to so concisely meat and potatoes what is occurring, and that's particularly effective and needed when it comes to Donald Trump, because let's be honest, Donald Trump is kind of the opposite of that. Donald Trump is not concise. Donald Trump is not meat and potatoes. Donald Trump is a giant buffet. And sometimes there are so many items on the buffet, you lose track of what's going on. And I'm just talking about communication. Now, in some ways, his communication is perfect, but when it comes to that sort of thing, Marco Rubio is fantastic. Yesterday, he had a moment to speak to the press during the cabinet meeting, and he used that opportunity to, among other things, try to explain to those who may not understand why it is Trump does what he does.
An honor to be in this role. It's also an honor to be involved in and be a witness to what I believe is the most transformational year in American foreign policy since the end of the Second World War, at least. And it's transformational because for the first time in a long time, we have a president who basically puts America at the forefront of every decision we make in our relations with the world. And that may sound weird to people, like, of course you always do. No, that hasn't always been the case until about a year ago. And I think we've all witnessed in our own respective spaces how in every interaction the president has with the world, the goal he has in mind is very simple. Does what you want us to do, or is it is it going to make us stronger? Is it going to make us richer? Is it going to make us safer? If it is, he's for it. If it's not, he's against it. If something's going to make America weaker or poorer or less safe, the president's going to be against it. And every single thing he has done in our foreign policy has been driven by the American people in mind. And I can go down the list. Why has he focused on mass migration? It's very simple, because no country is safe if you can just walk in without us knowing who you are into your country. We've seen the destruction that that's wreaking, not just in our own country, but the impact that it's having in Europe and in many other parts of the world. You talk about trade deals and the trade situation has been involved in. People, all this reporting on it. It's very simple. The president views the last 40 years as an era of which American workers and American farmers have been ripped off. They've been ripped off, and what he's saying is we want to have trade with the world, but it has to be a trade in which American businesses and American workers and the products they make and what American farmers grow and produce has a fair shot to be sold around the world.
He would make a few other points, and one of the notations was the fact that you may, incidentally, not agree with the way that he goes about it, but the one thing that if you really truly just want to understand why he does what he does, is it's like, does this make things better for America? And while you may disagree with his assessment, that's his driving force. So there's nothing to be confused about here. And honestly, I think one of the reasons it is confusing for a lot of people is because, let's just be honest, despite what so many past presidents have said, I think Donald Trump's behavior has demonstrated that maybe in retrospect, that's not what past presidents were doing, Republican and Democrat. And the added bonus of having somebody like Donald Trump that's a self-made billionaire and doesn't have to have money from, is not reliant on anyone for money, is not, like, you don't even have to worry about that being a motivating factor. The thing about Trump that so many people see as detrimental, as a flaw, his obsession of winning and being the best, do you not recognize that, like, when he's in charge of the country, what that means? That means that what you see as a flaw, an obsession with always coming out on top and being number one and the winner, that is for the country, for the United States. If you hate Trump and you recognize that he is obsessed with proving that he's the best and that he can win and that he can make the best deal, as much as you hate him, if you're a reasonable person, you have to recognize what that means for the country when he's head of the country. I mean, just think of it in terms of somebody that's non-political. If somebody is just known to be obsessed with winning and being the absolute best and they get hired to run a company, you know what that means for the company. I want to play some other bits of Marco Rubio, that totally separate setting. He was on with Sean Hannity, and he was talking specifically about, well, a number of things. It was a long sit-down interview, but I want to play you some of the things regarding Venezuela, because, again, he manages to put things in such a straightforward way that it's like sometimes the clouds just clear, and you're like, oh, yeah, that actually makes absolute perfect sense. With the escalation of how the United States is dealing with Venezuela, I suspected that it was going to be an opportunity for us to become a little more educated as to exactly what's going on. And it's easy for the average person to have observed what's going on and think, well, this is just it's just drugs. Like, they're drugs. They've got drug dealers, and this is how they make money. And we've always had drug dealers, and so these are just drug dealers. And Trump's like tired of those drug dealers and want to take them out. Marco Rubio here in the sit down with Sean Hannity yesterday, I believe it was, breaks down what Venezuela's play in all of this is and why this isn't just about some drug runners coming out of Venezuela.
The president has authorized a counter-drug mission in the region. The fact that Maduro is upset about it tells you the drugs are coming out of Venezuela. If you look at these votes, the Maduro regime is not a legitimate government. What it is a transshipment organization. It allows cocaine and other drugs that are produced in Colombia to be trafficked through Venezuelan territory, and with the cooperation of elements of the regime, are allowed to sail out on airplanes and leave Venezuela on airplanes and ships headed towards the United States. So they openly cooperate with the drug dealers. In addition to that, the Venezuelan regime is a source of instability in the entire region. Over 8 million Venezuelans have flooded into neighboring countries as a result of the regime's activities within their own country, including into the United States. They also happen to be the foothold of Iran. That's not spoken about enough. Iran, its IRGC, and even Hezbollah has a presence in South America, and one of their anchor presence, especially for the Iranians, is inside of Venezuela. So we just finished talking about Iran and the hostility it has towards the United States. Where they have planted their flag in our hemisphere is on Venezuelan territory with the full and open cooperation of that regime. So the fact that Maduro feels threatened by the presence of U.S. assets in the region in a counter-drug mission, it proves that he's into the drug business. And by the way, it's not me saying it. I'm not just making this up. This was an indictment that came out of the Southern District of New York back in 2020, an indictment. It was undisputed until the president decided to do something about it. No one disputed that Maduro was in the drug trafficking business. No one. Yeah. Now that he's doing something about it, you have all these people on the left and others that are coming out saying, well, it's not true and it hasn't been proven. We have an indictment by a grand jury. Not by politicians, by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York that indicted him and a bunch of people in the regime.
Now, Rubio's point here is this isn't just about drug running. This is about something much more important and significant. And what it is that's drug running, that this is the government. This is the government that's running the drugs. And part of it is, funding terrorism. And not only that, but Iran and Hezbollah. Like, they have set up shop there. And again, I just can't, this is just all context. I think back to post 9/11 and how we all woke up and realized, gosh, we can't pretend as if war is traditional war and ignore, like the whole bin Laden. He was offered to us, but we're like, well, he hasn't really done anything that we can get him on. And even though we know he wants to destroy us. And so, we just let him go. How, we had, he mentions you have Venezuela importing trans de Aragua into the United States of America. Well, gee, in retrospect, after 9/11, we had all these people from Saudi Arabia come over and how could we miss it? And it's like we have gotten back to this stage in which we pretend as if these things that are proactive movements from other countries that want to do us harm are meaningless. And the Trump administration's approach is this is not meaningless. We have to stop this now. It will be much easier to stop it now, and it will be much less bloodshed and military involvement if we take care of it now instead of letting it get to the point that our enemies want to get us to. Again, doesn't mean that you necessarily have to agree with the way that the administration's going about it, but it is much the reasons behind the administration's way of dealing with this is not simply because, there are drugs coming into the country. It is far broader than that in the context of our national security. Quick break, a couple more audio bits of Marco Rubio. I'm Nick Reed. Before Marco Rubio, Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Wanted to read a review for the fine folks over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Patsy wrote, Josh was excellent to work with. We thought we had a major roofing issue, and Josh, he came out and he really listened to us. He then went on the roof to find the issue and he fixed it on the spot. Checked our total roof just to make sure there were no other complications. He was very personable, knowledgeable, and honest. I highly recommend Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company to anyone having water water or roof issues. 5 stars for sure. And that's what you get with the Pyramid Roofing Company. They really do understand that your home is one of the largest purchases that you will make in your life, and they always want to offer you the best solution, and that means that they always have your best interest in mind. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home to make sure that your roof is ready to handle the winter months, reach out to Josh today and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Marco Rubio sit down with Sean Hannity yesterday, and it was quite an extensive interview. Part of what they talked about was Venezuela, and he made remarks regarding people's reaction to the fact that the reporting of aircraft carrier in that region and just how ominous this is, and the red alert and the maps, and look at the ships there. And he provides what I think is reasonable perspective on that reaction.
You know, it's interesting. If an aircraft carrier, the United States, was deployed off the coast of Japan, or was the coast on the Pacific somewhere, or was deployed in the Mediterranean, or in somewhere off the coast of Europe, everybody would be happy because it would show America's commitment to our security partnerships that we have around the world. But somehow, if an aircraft carrier and our naval assets are deployed in our own hemisphere, that's problematic. I would say that if you're focused on America and America first, you start with your own hemisphere where we live. What happens here, I'm not saying things that are happening halfway around the world are not important. I'm saying what happens in our hemisphere impacts us faster and more deeply than something that's happening halfway around the world.
And then the final audio I want to play here, as we sort of round out the show, he was answering the question about, I mean, Maduro, what's going to happen here? I mean, Trump kind of offered to get him out of there. That didn't work. Is Maduro somebody that you think we can even make a deal with?
Well, look, at the end of the day, we're Maduro, and his problem basically is that this is a guy, if you wanted to make a deal with him, I don't know how you do. He's broken every deal he's ever made. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. If you can work out a way that, you know, you can bring stability to the hemisphere, you can make Venezuela help be a country that isn't the base for Iranian influence against and activities against the United States. You could have a Venezuela that didn't traffic in drugs and didn't send people to our country like Tren de Aragua gang members and the like. That would be great. The problem is Maduro has made 5 deals with different parties over the last 10 years and has broken every single one of them. The Biden administration made a deal with Maduro. No one talks about this. He made a deal with Maduro. Here was the deal. Maduro asked that his nephews, convicted drug traffickers, be released from U.S. prisons. He asked that his chief money launderer, his money man, his bag man, be released from U.S. custody before he stood trial. In exchange, he promised to hold free and fair elections. He got the nephews back, the drug dealers. He got the bag man back, and he never did the free and fair elections.
They stole the elections.
They stole the elections. They suckered Joe Biden. They're not going to sucker Donald Trump. And so that's really the fundamental problem we have here. I think the president is a unique figure in modern American history. He's prepared to sit down and meet and talk to anybody. Okay, he just met the other day with the president of Syria, who has, an interesting past, to say the least, in terms of his past activities. He's willing to meet with Putin. He's willing to meet with Xi. He's willing to meet with Kim Jong-un like he did in the first term. He's willing to meet with anybody. But at the end of the day, there has to be somebody that you can actually make a deal with. We've made a deal with the Chinese, but Maduro's never kept a deal. That doesn't mean the president won't try. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Now, what you heard there is just straight up common sense, which is noteworthy because that is a different approach than we have been accustomed to. He referenced the way that Maduro hoodwinked the Biden administration. And I remember when this occurred because we talked about it. And the reason it stood out was because part of that deal, as Marco Rubio noted, was that they would have free and he would allow, essentially it was, at one point he was not going to allow the opposition party to pick a candidate. And so the Biden administration said, hey, we'll give you what you want as long as you allow free and fair elections. And so Marco Rubio noted there it was his family members at drug dealers and so forth. So what did Maduro do in order to make sure that there weren't free and fair elections? He got very clever. And he did what the Democrats were doing at the time. He had judges declare that the candidate wasn't valid and couldn't be on the ballot. This was around the same time that's what a number of Democrats were doing, including the Attorney General in Colorado. And I thought it was just so noteworthy that a dictator from Venezuela was mimicking the behavior of the Democrats when it came to elections in the United States. Glenn Beck's coming up next.